Hi, my name's Dave Sanesteven, and today I wanted to show you a tool that I'm using for changing the bearings on the OS Outboard. If you're like me, changing bearings is always a challenge. You always wonder if you got them in right or if they're fully seated. Also, if you're out in the field or at the pond and have to change bearings, it's always a challenge. You end up using a torch to heat the case. You always run the risk of potentially warping or distorting the case if you don't heat it properly. And also, if you're like me, usually whenever I mess with things that are hot, I end up burning my fingers. So this little tool was designed by Hudy. It comes in this box. It's actually called the Hudy Ultimate Tool Kit. It should be more appropriately named the Hudy Bearing Replacement Tool. This one is for the 21 and 12 size engines. I bought it with the 21 size engine bushings, but you'll find that out of the box it won't work with an OS engine. The tool is primarily designed for an engine with a 14mm crankshaft, and the OS has a 13mm crankshaft. So let me show you the tool first. The tool actually has several components. This is the main tool. You can see that it has two thumb screws on it. As you remove it, it has two additional bushings on it. This is the primary bushing for seating the bearing. This additional bushing is used when extracting the front bearing. These two pieces were originally 14mm, and I had to turn them down to 13mm. And if you buy this kit and decide to have a machine shop mill these down for you, you actually need to mill them down about 2/1000 under 13mm so that you get a nice running fit on those. We'll use this piece, this bushing, only during the extraction of the front bearing. We'll use this one for extraction of the front bearing and the replacement of all the bearings. One of the nice things about this tool is when you become practiced with it, you can replace a set of bearings in literally just a few minutes. This is the other piece of the tool kit. This is for extracting the rear bearing. You can see that it has a collet on the front here. This collet is used to insert into the bearing, and then this screws back to extract the bearing from the case. Now, once again, when you buy this kit, it comes with a 14mm collet. You can buy this collet separately. It runs about 20 bucks, and this is a 13mm collet. And what's interesting is that you can buy the 13mm collet for extracting the rear bearing, but I haven't been able to find this particular bushing in a 13mm from Hudy, so that's why I had to have that turned down. So let's start with their engine. You can see that I have an OS Outboard engine. I've extracted all of the various parts, and we're down to just the bearings. Step one of this process is to extract the front bearing. Then after we extract the front bearing, then we'll use this tool to extract the back bearing, and then we'll use this tool again without this bushing to press the new bearings in. So to extract the front bearing, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this tool, we're going to slide this bushing on, and the spacer that's used for extracting the front bearing. There's one additional piece which I haven't shown you yet, which is this collar plate that's used for extracting and pressing the front bearing. So at this point, with these two bushings on the shaft, we'll insert this through the back of the engine, and you should slide right through the bearing, and it should come right out the front. To extract the bearing, you see that one side of this plate or cup is a cup, and then the other side is a flat plate. During the extraction process, we'll put the cup side towards the bearing because it'll actually pull the bearing into this cup. At this point, I just put this thumb screw on, I turn it, and you'll feel the bearing give. And you just turn it until you feel the bearing come out. Then go ahead and remove this. And at this point, you'll see that your front bearing has been extracted. Now we're ready to extract the back bearing. We remove this tool, and we'll now need, and there's the spacer, we'll now need this piece. for extracting the rear bearing. Now the first thing we do is we screw this in to relieve the pressure on the collet. I like to screw it back out until it just barely touches before it actually spreads the collet. This keeps us from playing too much when you actually insert it into the bearing. Now the next thing you need to do is back this off enough to make sure that you get this into the rear bearing. Then you just simply insert this. I may have it a little too tight here. There we go. Insert this into the rear bearing. You can feel it seat in the bearing. Then you back this top screw out until that collet is tight in the bearing. At this point you've got a hold of the bearing. Now you then screw this collar down until it's snug against the back of the case. Now you've got a solid positive connection with that bearing. Then simply turn this thumb screw. Oh, I missed that time. I must not have gotten my collet all the way in. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to back this off a little further. Make sure we get all the way down in there. Okay, back this out, make sure that that collet is seated. And it's got a lip that goes behind the bearing. Okay, once again that's tight. We screw this down until it's snug against the case, and then we'll back this out. And this time I feel like I have the bearing, so I'm pretty sure it'll come out. And there we have it. So to retrieve your bearing, you just loosen this thumb screw on the back, releases the pressure on the collet, bearing comes out. So now you have your bearing. At this point we're ready to put the bearings back into the unit, and putting the bearings back in is even more simple. We're going to use this tool again. We are not going to use this bearing that we used to push out the front bearing. Instead we're just going to use this main bushing. You're going to put your bearing onto this bushing, making sure that you orient it properly. Remember, you're going in backwards, so that's going to be towards the crank. And we slide that on. And now we're ready to insert this into the engine. So once again, we just insert it into the engine. You'll feel it seat to where the bearing's starting. We take our front bearing, we slide the front bearing on the shaft, and we get it started, make sure it's kind of square in the hole. We take this collar again, where we used the cup side before, now we're going to use the flat side, and that rests against the bearing. We take this thumb screw, we start it, and snug it up, and then just gently twist, and you'll feel it bottom out. When it bottoms out, the bearing is completely seated on both sides, both front and rear bearings, and you're done. I did this, I changed all the bearings on my OS this year, and it took me about 3 minutes to do 3 engines, so very, very efficient once it's done. One of the other things I'd recommend is that when you put the bearings back in, put a little oil on the outside of the races so that you take some of the friction off of the seats. But you can see now that that bearing is perfectly installed both on the rear and the front, and you're good to go. So anyways, this tool is available from Hudy. It's about $100 by the time you get the additional bushing, another $20 plus whatever it cost to have this turned down. My local machine shop did this for me as a favor, so I'm not sure what it costs to have that done, but once again, if you're going to do this, this is typically a 14 millimeter crank, and if you want to get this turned down for the OS, you need to get it turned down to 2/1000 under 13 millimeters. If you have any questions, give me a call. I'm glad to share what I know about it. Thanks.